So yes, my name is Paul. I'm representing Canyon today. We make bikes, not printers. Actually, a lot of friends of mine, when I say I work for Canyon, they say, you make those printers. No, we make bikes. We are a global brand based in Koblenz. So a German company, German engineering, German quality. We have offices in the US and in the Netherlands as well. We ship to over 50 countries worldwide. Yeah, we have then 14 entities, right? So sales offices across the globe, where we work mainly on marketing and forecasting what happens in those markets. Canyon was born with the idea of revolutionizing the bike industry by being the first direct-to-consumer brand selling high-end bikes. So, I mean, I guess if you know cycling, if you like cycling like I do, or maybe even a little bit less, you know there are a lot of cycling brands, Trek, Specialized, that sell their bikes in the bike store at the corner, in your street, in your city. What Canyon does is sell these bikes online. So you go to our website, there you look at which bike you want, which specifications you want, which colors. We ship it to you, and you do the last part of the assembly yourself. So you put in the wheels, the saddle, things like that. But it's really a fully direct-to-consumer journey. We want to do this by being the most inspiring and innovative cycling brand in the world, which means, one, yes, by how we bring our product to market, but also the quality and the specs of the bikes that we make. And that goes from road bikes to gravel bikes, mountain bikes, but also the city bikes that you can take on a trip through Amsterdam, for example. So we are covering a broad range of, let's say, bike specifications, which all come with their own individual intrinsics when it comes to planning, and also like how you bring them to market. Because you can imagine that selling a high-end road bike online is probably slightly easier because the consumer is more informed, more educated about the bike than selling urban and recreation bike to your mother who, yes, she rides her bike to go to the grocery store, but then she doesn't have that much knowledge about how to even put a bike together. So these are some of the things that we are looking into. How do we make also that journey more inspiring, more innovative for people that are maybe not as crazy about cycling as the guys you see on all these nice pictures that are behind the slides. Very important for us as a company is also that we want to do this because we believe as an organization that as a community, as Earth, we only succeed if we all do our part in protecting the planet. And of course, we believe cycling is a very important part of that. Getting cars out of the street, getting people moving, bicycles can be part of making the world more sustainable. But it also means that we have our responsibility to make sure that we make these bikes and we plan for these bikes in the most efficient way. We don't produce too much waste, we don't produce too much excess inventory, etc. It's important that we all do our part to make sure that we make planet Earth as healthy as possible. So what do we want to achieve and how do we want to get there? We basically want to take our inspired to ride motto and make our planning capabilities serve that mindset by putting the consumer at the heart of everything we do. And that means that we move from a push model where we produce the bikes and we basically believe that people will buy them, which also was true for a long period of time, especially during COVID, right? You could produce any bike and anybody would buy it. That we actually listen to what the consumer wants and we build our planning capabilities around that. So we move more to a pool model, and this is where we are collaborating with O9, and by leveraging their capabilities, really making sure that we take the insights we get from the consumers, and we have a lot, right? Because we are a D2C brand. We register all the sales ourselves. We also see the traffic on the website. We see what people click on. There's a lot of data we can use to actually do this planning, that we use that information and that data to create demand planning and budget, then a supply and inventory plan, and then align with our suppliers, our factories, and our warehouses on how we bring these two together. So instead of pushing all this from left to right, we start at the right and we make sure that it meets in the middle. we've been on this journey with O9 for a while already, and we've brought a number of modules live. We have basically these 5 that we are currently working with, that we are embedding in the organization, and where we are working very hard on adoption. It's, let's say, the high-level strategic plan. So how do we want to grow as a company? Where do we want to grow? In which world? In this context of world, in the sense of which group of bikes. So is it road bikes? Is it gravel bikes, mountain bikes, etc.? Breaking that down to a category financial plan or merchandise financial plan. So a high-level plan on a platform, which is a group of bikes that share the same characteristics. I don't want to go too much into detail, but like we make aero bikes, right, which are very aero. We make ultimate bikes, which are very light. These are the platforms. So we plan those with a high-level outlook for the coming years. And then we break it down to an assortment plan where we take the input also from the markets, right? So how do they believe these bikes will perform? And we bring it all together in the demand planning module, where on a monthly cadence, we review the forecast to say, okay, are we all between the people, the merchandisers that do the category financial plan and the market managers that do the input from a market perspective, are we aligned, and what's the final number that we are committing to? So that then we can translate that to the supply planning part, which we are starting to implement soon. So first then, an open to buy module, right? So how do we compare the demand to the inventory that we have? And then really doing the supply planning. So actually, how do we translate what we need to produce to fulfill the open to buy into what we are then gonna produce, also based on the availability of components, etc. Right? You can imagine a bike consists of a lot of different parts. So to build it, we need to make sure that all these parts are there. If not, how do we translate that into maybe building different bikes, etc. So this is, for now, the scope of the capabilities that we've brought and are bringing live with O9. Like I said, the left part, you can see it, it's released. This is the part where we are driving heavily adoption. And the right part is where we will soon kick off work. What I wanted to take you through in the next couple of slides is then, obviously, why did we do this? But also, what did this journey look like? I guess some of you are at the start of the journey, some of you are halfway, some of you are maybe further than we are. You've all made your observations. I wanted to share what we've observed in Canyon, so that maybe there's something that you think of, okay, if I'm gonna do this, this is a good idea. Why did we want to do this? Like a lot of companies, I mean, I was at Adidas before joining Canyon, and there it was at least the same. A lot of these processes that we now translated to O9 were still happening in an offline way, mainly in Excel. I guess you also all know Excel. So there was a disconnect between information that was shared between different teams. So the first part, or the first reasoning of doing this, is to make sure that all the information, all the data lives in one place. So you have an integrated platform which allows you to have automated workflows, information flows automatically from one module to another, but also a unified data model, right? So the information that goes into the tool is the same for everybody. And it's not people doing VLOOKUPs in one file and another one doing VLOOKUPs in another file, and therefore the information being out of sync. So you create really one source of truth. What that then facilitates is obviously that you can actually do these things faster, right? You don't need people for one day to update just an Excel file, then someone else to pull in their information. So you can actually make these planning cycles more continuous. Instead of doing it quarterly, you can do it monthly. But you can at least look at the data much more frequently, and also at fresh data much more frequently. And again, because of these modules being connected, people can collaborate with each other in real time. It's not, okay, I sent you an Excel file, then you open it, then again, you look it into your file, then it takes some time to calculate, etc. So you can really start working in a real-time collaboration way between different departments. And the last one is that, of course, planning is art and science combined, but in Excel, it's mainly art, not so much science, right? So it's mainly people, let's say, bringing their personal opinion, their personal feel for how things are going to perform in the future into Excel. And there's a lot of institutional knowledge usually there. But using a tool like O9 allows you to actually enhance that knowledge with statistical forecasting, right? So actually really looking unbiased at the data to give people an added input into how certain products is gonna perform in the future. And next to that, it allows you then also to plan for different scenarios, right? Again, in Excel, creating different scenarios is a lot of effort. In O9, with the click of the button, you can create a different scenario and users can simulate the effects of making certain decisions on how this will impact operations and finances. Is it easy? No, I would say. Is it fun? Yes. How did we get there? I broke it up kind of in a 3-stage journey, trying to link it a little bit to how you would go about a bike ride. So you start with the recon, you ride, and then if you do it well, and you do it well consistently, you end up on the podium. Part 1, the recon, is where you start with creating awareness across the organization that this transformation is necessary and that it needs to be done, but also why it needs to be done. So some of the lessons we learned is that you really need to work hard on reworking the foundation. And that means not just copying what people did in the past into O9, right? It's really looking at all the core business processes that are in place. Are they still meaningful in the new environment? Does it make sense to continue them as is? Or is it maybe better to shift closer towards industry standard? Or is it easier by optimizing certain features in the tool to actually do things in an easier way? Making sure that you really look at these processes and not just copy one by one, and that you make sure that once you've designed this in a target operating model and a blueprint of the tool, that actually the rest of the organization also buys into that, right? And we'll dive a little bit more into that later. Then the second one, data is really the cornerstone of any transformation. If you don't have high quality, complete data, these things, they just won't work, right? They won't function the way you expect them to function, and then users get upset because what they're expecting to see, they don't. But important in that is don't be blind on the quality of the data, right? In the beginning, it's much more important that there's integrity in the data. And with that, I mean that data across the different systems in the organization is aligned, because there's nothing more frustrating than people doing something in O9, thinking that, for example, an article is assigned to the wrong platform, going through a different PLM tool, and they're actually seeing that this article is indeed assigned to a wrong platform, and then having to question what is right and what's wrong, right? So quality is one thing, and of course, yes, ideally, all the information you have is correct. But in the beginning, it's important that you ensure that information is consistent across the different tools where people have access to this information. And then really you need to drive a shift in mindset. And that works best if you really start the change management, the learning, and the adoption of the program right from the beginning. Don't wait till you've built half of it. Don't wait till you're about to go live and you start doing training, etc. Really involve people from the beginning and make sure that you make change management a dedicated focus. That's, let's say, one of my top 3 learnings from doing this in Adidas and now in Canyon. Change management is really underrated as a part of the overall transformation process. So make sure that you start this learning and adoption process from the beginning. Then you start the ride. So you get on your bike, you start pedaling, and you start building for the future. You try to get better, right? So once you have this foundation in place, you focus on the adoption and the agility of enhancing the value delivery of what you've implemented, right? So of course, what you bring is likely already better than what was there in the past, but it should at least be on par. The next step is then making it better. Drive this adoption. You help teams to understand the change, and you don't tell them, look, this is what's coming, just deal with it, right? Again, this change management, it's going to be a red line throughout the story. This is super important. And don't approach it as a tech transformation only, right? It's an overall transformation. Yes, there's a lot of tech involvement from building up a platform like O9 and integrating it in the organization, but it's not a tech transformation. It's a business transformation, and it's important that the people that will actually use the tool in the future, they are part of this journey. Start treating it as a product over a project, right? Of course, especially in the beginning, you need fixed timelines to make sure that the overall organization is aligned with what's going to happen. But as soon as you can, start shifting from a project-based approach where you're working from one deadline to the next, really to a product-oriented way of delivering a transformation like O9. And then also focus on the value delivery and not on the deadlines, right? Make sure that what you deliver adds value to what you already have, and you're not just doing it because 6 months ago you decided that this is what you need to deliver in Q2 of 2025. Really, this iterative process makes overall value of what you deliver to the organization is much bigger, and also that people feel more engaged with the change that's going on, because it also means that the input they are giving, you can actually take it in consideration much sooner than if you just work from one project deadline to the next. And that fits in with the ensuring fit and flexibility, right? So you then make it really a co-creation process. The inputs from the users, from the key users, from the community, you really can take it into consideration when evolving the product instead of working with these fixed project deadlines. And in that, don't be blind on the process, because organizations change, responsibilities change. What is important is that what you define is what is the input and the output of the tool that I need at any given time, right? Because then you make sure that the position of the solution in the organization is stable and adaptable to the differences that might happen because there's a reorganization, etc. And then you've raised a couple of times and you are there, right? You're getting ready to win. You're making it to the podium. This is when this transformation becomes sustainable. Like, you make it part of the company culture, you embed continuous improvement, and that's also the point in time where you should really start focusing on measuring your KPIs. In this phase, you really move back from a project and from a product perspective, and you give more and more power to the users. Of course, as a product owner, I'm there to facilitate the process, but the idea is that the teams feel empowered to really identify and also come up with improvement opportunities on the tool. They feel so comfortable with the solution that they are actually telling me, well, if we would do that, it would make it much better, right? So you really get people to embrace the tool as a way of making their life easier. Then you make sure that it's a co-creation between the business and the IT department, not one telling this needs to happen and the other one saying, I don't agree. No, they work together on an ongoing basis to make sure that you co-create whatever the next step of your tool is. And lastly, you measure success. Of course, yes, success in the sense of whatever KPIs you agree, right? So reduction of excess inventory, maybe improved sell-through, reduced markdowns, etc., etc. But at least as important in measuring success is, what do the users actually think and feel, right? Something like NPS, for example, right? Measure solution NPS to see how happy people are with the tool that you're providing them, and also to see how this changes over time, to see if what you are bringing and the changes that you are bringing are actually helping people to make their life better. That's it. I'm out of time, I see on the timer. So that was it. A little bit about the journey that we are going through at Canyon. I hope it was insightful. And I mean, if you have any questions, then feel free to reach out.